Pardon me while I have a strange interlude.
There is nothing else. Life is an obscure hobo bumming a ride on the omnibus of art.
Along the misty corridors of time, and in those corridors I see figures, strange figures.
Welcome back, my friends, to the AP Strange Show. I'm your host, AP Strange. This is my show, and we're going to have a little fun tonight because tonight's program is brought to you by potatoes because they're pretty neat. So call your local potato man to bring you potatoes. Because this is going to be a very silly and fun episode because I have a dear friend of mine here to join me on the show tonight. She is a musician and we had hosted a show before together called The Eternal Void, but with jazz. And like she is kind of the reason I'm here doing this show is because she took a chance on having me on there, so I felt more comfortable doing that. um uh, so welcome, listeners, our guest tonight, Michelle Elmquist. How you doing, Michelle?
Hey, I'm doing wonderful. And yeah, that was no chance taken, my friend. That was a lot of fun having you on. And those were some amazing talks that we had. And that was a lot of fun. But yeah, I'm doing great. I've got my tea and I am ready to be silly and talk about some silly cartoon stuff. I don't know if we're going to give it away just yet or if you want to kind of
Oh
explain
yeah,
it. But
yeah.
yeah,
Well, I mean, so our running theme for Michelle and I and in our friendship is just our mutual appreciation for The Simpsons. And I think that probably shows our age in some level because I think people of a certain age had their minds broken early on by the hilarity and absurdity of the TV phenomenon known as The Simpsons. So we were hoping to focus a bit on the more paranormal and weird aspects that happen in The Simpsons, but we're talking about the show more generally as well. People talk a lot nowadays about like the internet having broken people's brains, but I would argue and have argued in the past that as much as I love it, you kind of have to admit The Simpsons kind of broke a lot of people's brains too.
yeah, like and a lot of people probably don't remember, but like it was a cultural juggernaut. Like those first two seasons hit like the Christian right wing, like a ton of bricks, and everybody was like being reactive. At least in
Right.
like my I grew up like with a pretty like kind of a far rightish like Catholic side of my family, and they were all Nancy Reagan and Tipper Gore about it, and I was like, wow. And like a lot of other people, I wasn't allowed to watch it until I was like solidly like late middle school, high school maybe.
Well, right. And it was very controversial in a lot of ways, which is hilarious to think of now. And because, um, I mean, the common explanation for it was that typically you would see functioning families on TV. So to have a dysfunctional family in a show was like unheard of. And I think people do forget also that it was a cartoon sitcom that wasn't
Yeah,
designed for kids. Um,
right.
and that kind of that was a major disconnect for a lot of people at the time, was just like, how could a cartoon not be for kids? Like, it's a cartoon, so it must be for kids, you know?
Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, like there was a few, like I remember a few like adult cartoons in the main zeitgeist, like at the time, like Heavy Metal being the first one that's coming to mind, and probably
Yeah,
like a few animes that made it over and got a translation. Thinking of
yeah.
like I don't know, like not to get off topic, but there was one in my childhood that scared the ever living shit out of me called Unico. That was definitely like looked like it was supposed to be for kids, but definitely was not.
Yeah.
Um, but that's but yeah, so I just sidetracked myself as I'm prone to do. Like,
That's okay.
so what I was
I feel like
saying,
that
where
was
I had an
I feel
onion
like that was
sticks
a
in my
long
belt.
tradition. Uh, I was gonna say I felt like that was a long tradition in Japan, as with the animes and stuff like that, or
Yeah,
animated movies that would be more adult oriented. Um, so for them, it probably wasn't that weird. But I think just having a major TV channel with a recurring show, a weekly show that was a cartoon for adults was a novel concept. So,
yeah, and like I think you're onto something there. And I also just like immediately thought like, I wonder how much of that reactionary pushback, blowback, if you will, from that was like almost like pushback from like the system being poked fun at, right? Like
yeah,
specifically, like I'm thinking to that Bigfoot episode in
right,
season one that we were talking about before we decided to record this. And there's a whole lot of like, yeah, like between like Homer like being suckered into like buying the RV and like the really dumb decisions he makes in order to get like in the stuff that happens in that episode, it's almost like it's parroting really like unmercifully almost the culture of the time. Like,
hmm
yeah, it's like I don't know, almost showing like the darker side of like or like almost like yeah, pre-predicting like where Reaganomics was going to end up.
right. Yeah, well, I mean, I think there was a social commentary thread running through at least the first 9 or 10 seasons, which are the only seasons that exist as far as I'm concerned. But
Absolutely.
again, showing my age, but I do think of it as more of a '90s phenomenon than anything else, because a lot of these ideas and the satire in it was kind of subversive at the time, and it was airing on Fox, and like they weren't afraid also to poke fun at Fox as while they were on it. Um,
Right.
they're a big breadwinner, so they could throw their weight around like that, I guess. But you But
Oh,
yeah, I mean that Bigfoot episode, I have to admit, season 1 is one that I never return to usually. Um, and I did at one point, and I was like, "Oh crap, I forgot all about this episode where people thought Homer was Bigfoot because he got lost in the woods and he was like covered with mud and like naked and stuff."
yeah. Like, uh, yeah, no, like season one, like I always forget that it's there, but I'm glad that like you pointed that out to me. Like a lot of my love of The Simpsons goes back to like my early 20s. I had like some pretty shitty stuff happen like back to back to back in my life. And I found myself like living in this apartment. We didn't have like cable or anything, just over the air TV. And like my amazing roommate at the time always had like Lord of the Rings DVDs going and going. And that was like the soundtrack to our lives. But all I had was like a hard drive with a bunch of pirated episodes of The Simpsons. And a lot of those were
Yeah,
season one episodes. So I went back and watched a lot of those, and yeah, it was sweet. Like, but also like I hadn't thought about the first two seasons. Like I always like I'm looking for like a comfort episode. I always go to like jump to like season four through seven, right?
right. Yeah, that's when things kind of. I think that was like Homer at its prime, like that's peak Homer in those seasons.
Exactly. Like we were
Yeah,
talking about the Frank Grimes episode, and like I think that is the highest rated episode on IMDb, and it's like that's in season eight, right? And there's like a slow buildup of ratings on IMDb to that episode, and then everything after that is a slow drop off.
right.
So like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well, I read something once about how, like, the episode that reveals that Seymour Skinner wasn't really Seymour Skinner was, like, the beginning of the end. Yeah.
yeah. I was just thinking about that episode. Like it was like Armin Garian or something. Like, yeah, my kickboxing coach also named Armin, so I was like, yeah, kind of the
Yeah.
two jumbled. But yeah, that was a really weird episode. Like, and like for some context, I guess for people listening, like in that episode, like how did that even get found out? Like the real Seymour Skinner was like who we know as Skinner's like sergeant in Vietnam,
Yeah.
and he apparently like got let out of like a POW camp and went back to Springfield, and I think that's how it all unraveled for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that was just weird.
Yeah, I mean, it was, the argument made in the article that I was reading is that it was kind of like weirdly mean spirited, and like, and I'm like, yeah, like it kind of was because it's like at the end, people were just like, well, we don't care, we just want everything to go back to normal. We have to force it to, you know. Um, so they get rid of the real Seymour and just we're like, let's never speak of this again. Anyone who ever does will be punished by catapults.
That is kind of oddly like really mean spirited, and like says something to like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I never even thought of that. I just kind of always hated the way that like they broke continuity and then just decided to like repress it all, like mass repression of it.
Yeah, because then what even was the point of that? Like, what was the point of doing that episode at all?
Yeah,
Yeah,
and that gets like, yeah, that gets real absurd real quick. And
right.
sometimes you just got to roll with the absurdity. Um,
Yeah, I mean, the absurd parts of the show were tended to be the things I really liked anyway. But I felt like it was always kind of grounded in reality. Uh, like, there were rules to the start to the Simpsons universe that didn't allow for things like Bigfoot, but you could allude to Bigfoot. Like you could have people think
right.
Homer is Bigfoot, or have like a Bigfoot documentary on where they have to stop the film because the guy's watch is showing. Is that the one where Krusty fakes his own death? Uh,
I think that is, yeah, because yeah, he's going to he fakes it crashing his plane. The I'm on a roller gay.
yeah,
Yeah, like eat it, internet. We're making a reference to that plane. So
yeah.
take it. Um, yeah.
But but
Go
then
ahead.
as we had mentioned, prior to recording, you have in one of the later seasons, you actually have the real Loch Ness monster, like Mr. Burns and Groundskeeper Willie and Homer, like capture the actual Loch Ness monster, and the Loch Ness monster is real, and it's just kind of like, well, I don't know, like this kind of,
Yeah, it jumped the luck, I guess you could almost say. There was
right,
some really great absurdity in that episode, like where the Loch Ness monster like ends up getting a job at the casino, I guess in Vegas.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
there's like a scene where like Homer's just like talking to Nessie, who's like wearing like a casino uniform. He's like, "You want a shrimp cocktail?" Nessie's like, "Meow." And Homer's like, "Yeah, they're not great." And then it just like credits roll.
yeah,
What the fuck did I just see there?
yeah.
But
Yeah, I'm not particularly a fan of it because I remember when it started getting towards the end of like the good seasons, I had that kind of concern already anyway because you have the one episode where there's like the skeleton of an angel is discovered at the place where they're going to build the mall,
yeah,
and I was just like, well, what are they trying to do here? Like this seems like now it's getting weird. Like, and it turns out to be a hoax at the end of it, but and you're like, okay, well, that makes sense within the continuity of this Springfield universe that we have. But um, uh, yeah, I remember having that concern when that was a brand new episode. Like, oh, are we moving in the directions of like angels are real in this universe now?
yeah, yeah. That is a bit off. I don't know what season that was. I was trying to find it, but yeah, I just remember like the prepare for the end of high prices,
Right.
and there
It
was
was
like
all
some
a
weird.
marketing gimmick. Yeah.
It's all it ever is, and it seems like a real
Yeah.
Scooby Doo moment at that point. Um, yeah, that was kind of weird of them to do. Um, my brain just zapped out on me at times. Uh, gotta stop looking at Simpson stuff while I'm trying to talk about Simpson stuff.
Yeah. Right. Well, Yeah, I think this stuff is all kind of like in the milieu for the '90s though, that made it like really fun. Like going back to the Homer as Bigfoot, I like that there were all these headlines on the paper that it would show you, or like they'd cover it on the news, because it just reminded me of like the Weekly World News.
Yeah, no,
But
definitely. Like they were definitely poking fun at that, and like it got a little weird. Like I don't know, like 'cause it seemed like it all took place in one day, but also there was like multiple days worth of headlines that kind of broke my like brain a little bit with that. And that's like,
yeah, and
yeah,
they're all good. Like they're all really funny. Like
it's like Bigfoot likes pork chops, open inside, great recipes.
right. um, yeah, like call him Homer, Bigfoot's wife says. Yeah, I mean, it is weird to revisit the first season though, because I feel like their characters weren't like well established yet. So, and they still tried to resolve like in a sweet way with every episode.
Yeah, like the first season was great because like yeah, they were dysfunctional, but at the end of the day, they were still like a family that just like wanted to try and love each other, you know? And I think
Yeah,
that's really important. And that was out the fucking window a few seasons later.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It got kind of cynical, but I think I do think it was like a mirror of the times, in a lot of ways. Um, because we didn't discuss this beforehand, but because this occurred to me kind of late, but there's this like thread of paranoia that was very '90s through a lot of those seasons too. Like the one where Bart gets really paranoid and he's talking about like Major League Baseball taking over everything.
Yeah, that was the episode when he was on Ritalin.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Brother's Little Helper. What season was that? But yeah, no, you're absolutely right. That was, yeah, it turned out he was right.
Yeah, he ended up being
Yeah.
right, but then it was one of the baseball players shows up. Was it? Oh man, who was it? Was it Jose
Yeah.
Canseco?
No, it was somebody else. Like I was about to like level
Mark
on
McGuire?
Mark McGuire, and that was all I could think was like steroids, and I couldn't think of a name. But yeah, it was Mark McGuire, and like yeah, we could tell you how Major League Baseball is taking over your lives and spying on you, or who just wants to see me hit a few homers.
Yeah,
And everybody's like, let's just watch the home run hitting.
yeah. Or you could just watch me hit a few dingers.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, and also like there was one where they're in a, I think they're in a bookstore, and you see like the purchase go through and the UPC code gets read and the signal gets sent down, and then it turns out it just goes straight to like Al Gore's office, and they're like, "Mr. Gore,
Yeah,
somebody bought a copy of your book."
yeah, that was the grandpa versus sexual inadequacy episode,
Right? Yeah.
which
Yep.
is fucking amazing.
Yep.
But yeah, and like that was a whole great gag, like because it definitely like played on like how boring we thought politicians were. God.
Yeah.
Anyway, um,
Well, that was the whole joke, is that Al Gore's a really boring guy, and
yeah.
and I think he played himself in that episode.
Did
Um,
he? I know he was a fan and ended up playing himself in Futurama.
yeah,
Um,
I think he did. He's just, well, this calls for a celebration.
Rachel.
The first person that bought a copy of his book.
Sane, planning, sensible tomorrow. Oh
Yeah,
God, what did we throw away?
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's sad, but it is kind of funny because they give you that paranormal or like paranoid lead up to it, where like, oh, oh, like, because there always was that idea that like you checked out the wrong book from the library, you end up like on this watch list, and
Right.
as the internet proliferated and we actually were being surveilled and that came to light and nobody disputes it, like all of a sudden nobody seems to really care anymore.
Oh, I love my local library. I've since rediscovered it, and I've been checking out all kinds of books. Fully
Yeah,
support the local library, but
yeah.
yeah, like
But I think it was like the last bastion of healthy paranoia and like
The
outrage
Simpsons. You
that
think
you're
it
being
was?
surveilled. The
Oh
90s,
yeah,
like, yeah, because I mean, the X Files was on at the same time, and I think like Orwellian dystopia was something that was very much like in the background all the time. People had that on their minds, and it shows even with just like a gag like that you're buying a book and then that goes directly to Washington, like the from the little scan of the UPC code on it.
gotcha. Yeah, I'm
And
picking up what you're putting down.
yeah, and but I think it's really funny how we just kind of, well, I mean, funny or sad depending on how you look at it. Everybody just freely gave up privacy, and they're just like, oh well, like what are you gonna do?
Yeah,
Uh,
this is true.
Like,
Yeah, they just want to see it hit a few dingers, I guess.
yeah, we're talking softball.
Oh, oh, that brain tonic though, it just tastes so good.
Yep, yep, and the bottomless hole,
Yeah, I love how he's falling like straight into the void, and he's still like got his camera out and he's snapping pictures. He's like, "Oh, cool," It's just like falling past like clocks that are running backwards.
Well, yeah, he's yelling and then he stops. He's like, "Ooh," click, and then it goes
Yeah,
back to yelling.
yeah,
So,
that
yeah,
is
for
so cool.
listeners, this is what Michelle and I do all the time. We're
Oh yes, no,
privately in our own lives just thinking of Simpsons references and then chuckling to ourselves and texting one another.
yeah, yeah. The FBI agents assigned to monitor our chat. I hope they're a fan of The Simpsons, because otherwise they're really not going to get anything we say to one
Yeah.
another.
What does it mean? Is this a code word, having an onion on your belt?
That'll be the name of our revolutionary group.
The onion belts.
Yes, the Onion Belt Society.
Right.
Passphrases. I just think they're neat.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it is kind of funny because I really feel like The Simpsons did seep into the subconscious of a lot of us who just would watch it every night, because where I lived, we had two stations that would play the syndicated like reruns every night,
Hmm.
and then the new episode once a week. So if I wanted to, I could watch two different Simpsons episodes every night, and I did
No
some
shit.
nights. I'd watch them like on Fox, and then I would go over to like the New Hampshire local station called WNDS, um, and that was great because they had a weatherman named Al Caprillion, and he was wacky as hell, and he would do the
Did he
weather like every half hour. So
did he call for a 75% chance of hilarity?
he did not, but he had a high voice. It was almost like he was kind of um, like Jerry Lewis's mutant cousin. Um, I shouldn't say anything like that sounds mean about him because I'm pretty sure he's still around. But
Yeah.
he'd be like, "Hi, I'm Al Caprillion." His last name was Caprillion, but he made it like two syllables somehow. It's Al Caprillion. Like, and his voice would go really high, like kind of on purpose, but like anytime there was a pressure system moving in, that's what he would say: "Is a system of high pressure."
This sounds magical as fuck. Oh my
It was
god.
great, and then you got another Simpsons episode out of it, so it was really good.
Yeah.
But I feel like like um, it's great to be able to just shoot references with you because that's what I always did with my friends, and like um, like recent years on social media. Like I didn't realize the extent of it, but I feel like that's so many people who are
Hmm.
like in their 40s now who are just like just had their brains partly wired by The Simpsons.
So fucking true. Yeah. And
To the point where I think I'm just cracking a joke that I'm making up in the moment. And people
yeah.
are like, haha, I remember that Simpsons episode. And I have to think about it and go, oh shit, yeah, I did steal that from The Simpsons.
Okay. So right after like my surgery on my voice, right, I couldn't, but I got invited to go over to people's house. They were having like a big, like they were just gonna make like a bunch of meat pies. They had a friend of theirs over who was like, I don't want to say it wrong, so I'm just gonna say somewhere in the Middle East. I can't remember exactly where, but and we were making like Middle Eastern meat pies, just like packs of them. But I'm
Yeah.
sitting there like with a bunch of people I don't know. I literally cannot speak even if I wanted to. And in the middle of all the conversation, he's like, talking about the recipes and like, part of his culture and family. And all of a sudden he's like, yep, and I'm your chef, Christopher. And I was just like, it was straight out of The Simpsons. And I couldn't do anything. I couldn't laugh. I
What,
couldn't react. I couldn't riff
what
on
did
it.
he say?
I'm
Uh,
your chef, Christopher.
oh,
Like, do you remember like the pita pocket episode when they got the
yeah.
Middle Eastern guy, the fleet of pita? But
Oh, it was
it
okay.
was a Simpsons reference out in the wild, and that was the important part of it. That just like completely caught me by surprise, and instantly like the entire vibe changed and everything was groovy.
Yeah, I thought you were going to say that he was making cloth collage.
Oh my god, no! But we should make cloth collage.
Yeah, for
Okay.
listeners, there actually is a recipe out there for cloth collage. If you've ever been curious and want to be able to make it, somebody invented a recipe for this fictional food. Because that was a great episode too, and like kind of an infamous one because it takes place in New York and involves the Twin Towers as a sight gag.
Yeah,
So they wouldn't show
yeah,
it on TV for the longest time after 9/11. So
yeah, and that was really sad because they even had like some jokes about like people in like the East Tower being like less jerky. Yeah, but yeah, that was yeah. And it all started because someone just needed to go buy an irregular coat.
yep.
I went, okay, so I tried to spell your weatherman's name as best I could, and I absolutely butchered it. But even with the butchering in the YouTube search bar, what came up was his name spelled correctly with high pressure after it.
Yep. That's what he's
So,
known for.
yep. Apparently that is a popular thing I'm gonna have to check out later.
I think he was so popular that when he retired, like people just kept writing the station and like trying to get him back, and he eventually just came back because people liked him so much.
Oh, that's so sweet. Amazing.
Yeah, yeah. He's a national treasure, that Al Caprillion, that only people in Massachusetts and New Hampshire know about.
Definitely gonna have to check that out.
Yeah, but yeah. I mean, I do feel like there is a subtle rewiring of the brain, um, to the point where like there's a significant portion of my memory bank and language function that is just composed of Simpsons references, that it could spill out at any moment. So,
I'm right there with you. You
yeah,
know what? I just think it's neat.
it was the style at the time. Uh,
Okay,
yeah,
question. Kang and Kodos. We wanted to talk about them. I
yeah.
wanted to go back and watch like the first Treehouse of Horror because I thought that was like their first appearance. But watching it while I was cooking dinner tonight, it was not Kang and Kodos who were there. So when did they show up? Do you remember?
Well, that was the first appearance of like that alien type,
Yes,
and I
definitely.
think either Kang or Kodos is there, but there's another one too that has a different name. There's
Yeah,
another
there was
two that
three of
have
them.
different names. Yeah,
Yeah.
and one of them was voiced by James Earl Jones because he
Oh
was
shit,
in
that's right.
he was in every little story in that Treehouse of Horror. So yeah,
Oh, was he?
yeah, he was the voice of the evil house that was trying to kill them.
Oh my
Um,
God.
I think, and then he was the alien, and then he was reciting the Raven at the end of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was just, yeah. Oh, wow. I had, I was just reminded that Maggie Simpson is technically one of their children.
Right.
Yeah. And
Oh, yeah, because he comes back for a different treehouse before when Homer invents a time machine by accident.
yeah,
Because he does the voice of Maggie after Maggie kills uh um groundskeeper Willie with the axe.
that was such a great episode. Like the
Yeah.
time machine toaster one and the shinning one.
Right.
I think
Yeah.
that was both on the same treehouse, I believe.
Yeah. Because the whole gag in that was like Willie dies in each story pretty much the same way. So um but yeah, that is I probably the best treehouse of horror. I would uh, you know, I don't know
It
if I
was
can really
definitely
decide that, but yeah.
no, I'm with you on that. I remember I bought that DVD when it was released and like it went everywhere with me for a couple years. Like it was like definitely on repeat play. I think like well, like sometime in like the early 2000s or late 90s, they finally started releasing The Simpsons on DVDs. They were
Mhm.
releasing like one Simps or one series like or one season like yearly or every 6 months or something. So felt like we had to wait forever to get like the new episodes and buy them
Right.
and yeah.
Yeah, and then they eventually started selling them in like big box sets.
Yeah.
Um but the like there's so many episodes now. It I can't imagine having it all on DVD.
I
But
know, right? Like it's something like 32 seasons.
yeah, I think it
Yeah.
actually is the longest running TV show of all time at this point.
Yeah.
So yeah,
That's wild to think about. Um
and it's also wild to think that those episodes were 30 years ago. Like
that
some of them, you know.
that is really, really wild to think about.
Yeah,
Like, Jesus.
but also um, I think that's important for context with it because you know 30 years before that, like 20 to 30 years before that, is like the 70s where like Marge and Homer are growing up in the 70s. So
Right.
I think they've had to like alter that for like the newer seasons because they couldn't possibly have gone to high school in the 70s.
Yeah. No, they've definitely had like future skip episodes where like they go to like Lisa's wedding or something that's like far, far in the future. And like
Yeah,
when they did that is like now technically like in our past.
yeah.
So yeah. Um yeah,
And they
have you
did
yet
that.
watched oh go ahead.
I was gonna say they did that in the one where they flash forward to like the 50th high school reunion for Homer and Marge.
Oh class. I love that episode.
Yeah.
Kiss
Simpsons, is
my
that a
grits.
plunger on your head?
And the award for most improved smell goes to Kiss my grits, Homer Simpson again.
Yeah, yeah. Um, but yeah, it is kind of crazy because they're like showing you the future in some of these episodes, and you're like, well, it's past now, you know?
Yeah. And I wonder, like, I don't know, like in a more like woo like paranormal aspect, like how much of like that was like a mirror to our own culture and like what does it say that like it's kind of just like I don't know. I don't even know where I'm going with this, but like I don't have some like overarching point, but like how you were kind of saying about like how it's quotes from The Simpsons have worked their way into our brain and like daily thought pattern or
Right.
jokes or just my brain wants to say like the word egregore to some extent, but I'm not sure how that plays into it.
I mean, I could kind of see that, yeah. But when I've written about it in the past, it's kind of been the idea that Homer is like an archetype for an everyman, you know, and really he's just kind of like the id of the American middle class white dude, you know.
Hmm.
He's a white man between the ages of 30 and 55. Everybody wants to hear his opinions, no matter how
Yeah,
stupid they are.
nuts and gum together at last. But no, like you're absolutely right. And I think I watched a video essay on the third season of Twin Peaks, and like it was like the same thing that like David Lynch was like taking to its natural conclusion with how Cooper, like, spoiler alert, I guess, whatever. It's been like, oh god, almost a decade.
Yeah.
Cooper like split himself off into like three people
Hmm.
after he came back, and like one of them was like just a complete like there was like the evil Cooper. There was the other one who was like kind of normal, and then there was the one that was like just had like a family and a kid and like
Hmm.
absolutely like no functioning brain whatsoever, and just
Yep.
did all the dumbest shit. But somehow like everything always worked out for him because he was
Right.
a white man between 18 and 55.
Right.
And yeah, and like the video essay was going on about like how that was commentary about like society and like the third golden age of TV at the time, like starting with The Sopranos, which arguably I guess could even go back a little bit further, starting with like
Yeah.
Homer Simpson maybe.
Yeah. And well, yeah, and I mean, I think like he's the apotheosis of the id, basically, of just like reveling in beer and TV and stupidity and
Yeah,
like harebrained money making schemes, and like um and I think it kind of allowed a lot of people to celebrate that and like give permission to be that on some level, you know.
I think you're right.
And what was really weird for me was, remember the guy that set himself on fire outside like the Trump trial? Yeah, like had that
Not the Trump
manifesto.
trial. I don't remember. Okay, vaguely. Yeah,
Yeah, he wrote a manifesto and he was kind of like talking about the Simpsons with all these weird messages that like change society. I'm like, that's kind of strange because he's sort of saying stuff that I've said before too. Like, but he's doing it in like a kind of really cynical, like paranoid way. Like, I don't think he's wrong, but I wouldn't go setting myself on fire about it.
yeah,
But that wasn't
like
the main thrust of what he was saying. But he did touch on that. Uh,
interesting.
yeah, it was real weird and kind of one of those moments where I'm like, I got to be real careful what I write about because
Yeah,
sometimes sometimes I think I'm just being kind of funny or kind of poignant, and sometimes people get ideas like this that are eerily similar to mine, but you know,
I
not
think
quite.
there's some. Yeah, I think there's something to be said for that, right? Like, you definitely want to be responsible with like what you put out there in the world, but also like that guy set himself on fire. Like,
Yeah,
I think there was probably like something inside him that was going to find some reason to,
yeah,
yeah, like there's some personal accountability there.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
not saying I caused it or anything, but
No, 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 no. I wasn't
it
picking
is
on you.
weird to see like the same kind of line of thinking that I had mirrored elsewhere in like a more extreme kind of way that was kind of more paranoid and more fatalistic, you know. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think Homer in general kind of gives people a little bit more permission to like celebrate being stupid, which is really funny when it's a cartoon, and actually not as funny when it's real life.
Yeah. Yeah, not at all. Oh
but
god.
um, but I mean, everything on that show was such a great send up of culture, and unfortunately is kind of dated now. So I mean, I feel like when I've introduced my son to the show, and he still thinks it's funny, but I'm like, there's references in here that he couldn't possibly get, you know,
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. Like the
like well, like Urkel. I had to explain who Urkel was, and then had to try to explain the popularity of Urkel in the '90s.
I mean, he just had such a sweet heavenly voice, like Urkel.
He appeared every Friday night, like Urkel. Uh, yeah, I mean that of course comes from the crossover episode of the X Files.
Yes,
You know,
yes,
right?
that was such a great episode.
Yeah,
Like, one of my favorite gags forever is in there. Like whenever Mulder and Scully walk into Moe's, and they're like, Mulder and Scully, FBI, and Mulder's got like whips his ID badge out. It's like in the fucking speedo. But
yeah,
Mo is like, FBI. Oh, 1 second. Then he like goes into the back room where there's like three guys hosing down a whale. And he's like,
yeah.
get him out of here, get him out of here. They're on to us. What the fuck did I just see? This is hilarious.
Mo's always got some weird thing going on in the background. Like he's always got some weird side hustle that's very illegal and ponderous because he had no idea what he could possibly be doing with that. But then later in that same episode, they're like walking across a field trying to carry the whale. He's like,
Yeah.
to the front, the feds, cheese it. But
Yeah.
yeah, and that was a great episode because basically you have like a whole UFO hysteria going on, and just
Yes.
turns out to be Mr. Burns. But
Yeah. Irradiated and whacked out of his gourd on morphine.
yeah, it's bringing love.
Get him.
Don't let it get away. Yeah. Oh, and Leonard Nimoy. So that
Yes.
the second time Leonard Nimoy was on the show was for that one. So
How many times has he been on? Do you
I think
know?
just twice because he's in the monorail episode and then that one. So
Okay. Yeah, I kind
yeah,
of even forgot that he was on twice until you just said like Marge versus the monorail. Yeah. Which also the monorail episode, like total like, oh my God, there's so much commentary there about like just um dumbasses getting away with being a dumbass.
right. Mule.
I call the big one Bitey.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think a lot of that too, that kind of golden age Simpsons stuff was down to Conan O'Brien being one of the writers.
Yeah.
Um, a lot of the really great stuff happened because he was there. So
Yes. No, absolutely.
that
Um,
and Phil Hartman being in the cast because Phil Hartman
yeah.
was just great. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. R.I.P. to a legend with that.
yeah,
Um, but no, I think you're absolutely right. Like Conan left like right around the same time that like the ratings started going down.
yeah, yep. So, and I mean, very recently he was at some event. I think it was like a award show or something, and he did like the whole monorail bit live.
Yeah, that was like right at the beginning of the pandemic, I think, wasn't it? Or like right before then.
Oh, I thought it was more
Um,
recent than that. I just saw like a video of it the other day online somewhere, and I think he was doing the whole shtick. But
uh, when was? Oh, holy shit, Matt! You're not gonna like this. I just looked it up on YouTube. That was from 10 years ago.
was it? Why am I
Yeah,
only just seeing it now?
I don't know why. I 99.9% sure I showed that to you at some point early on, like
Oh,
during the Feral years on Twitter.
yeah.
But
No. Time isn't
yeah,
real. Time's a flat
no,
circle. Yeah.
it really is. You can just kind of get the mouse pointer out and click to anywhere, or
Yeah.
that's YouTube anyway. Um,
Well, I tried to fix my toaster, and I just keep accidentally changing the timeline. So I'm sorry about that.
oh, did you think back to what your father told you on your wedding day?
I did think back to what he told me on my first day of school. You're dumb as a mule and twice as ugly.
This is ugly. A stranger offers you candy. I say you take it.
Yeah. Stupid traumatic childhood.
Oh, you really hit the nail on the head with that.
Yeah. Yeah, the older I get, I think I'm becoming less Homer and more Abe.
Tell me about it. Oh my God. Um,
Ready to start yelling at some clouds.
you remember the kind of off topic? I don't even think it was made, but I was thinking the grandpa versus sexual inadequacy was really great episode for dealing with like Homer's like childhood trauma and memories and all of that.
Yeah.
But also the Tamako episode, which I think
Yeah.
was one of the later seasons. But
Yeah, it
that one
was.
had some really good lines in it too for what it was.
Yeah.
Like,
It tastes
uh,
like grandma.
yeah. Chiefly looks like it does taste like grandma.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, there's always been such great comedy, like satire and commentary in that show, and I just feel like it was really on point in those years, and it's really funny now because like I find these reels, like short form videos and TikTok videos and stuff, where it's clearly younger people posting it, and the header says "Old school Simpsons was on another level." And it's like it's like archivists of the youth now, like digging into the
Yeah,
old episodes, and they're like, "Oh wow, this was on another level." I'm like, "You're damn right it was. It was actually
yeah.
funny back then. It was really good." So, um, yeah, I mean, I just can't
Yeah.
imagine like a whole generation never seeing um, Troy McClure introduce himself. Uh,
Yes. Oh my God.
yeah,
More than one way to get high, baby. I can't think of any of the films that he used to introduce himself. Like my brain just blanked out.
those always crack me up.
Yeah.
Um, Well, the self-help video, smoke yourself thin,
Some things get confident, stupid.
get confident, stupid.
Or like when he was like doing the educational videos, he's like, you may remember me from other educational videos, such as Timmy doesn't live anymore.
Right.
It's like, Jesus, that's dark, but yes.
The one that makes me cry laughing every time is when he introduces the juice loosener, like by pressing an orange against his eye socket until it pops. That slays me. Like, who in the writers' room came up with that? Like, it's until now, this was the only way to get fresh squeezed orange juice. Uh, yeah,
Order
damn.
now and you'll get 2 bottles of the suntan lotion that's also a laxative, Sun and Run.
Sun and Run.
Was that
Yeah,
on the same gag? I think it was.
it might have been. Yeah, one of
Yeah.
Dr. Nick's products,
Yeah.
which I mean, that's eerily like uh prophetic in itself. It's Dr. Nick Riviera because you're just
Yeah.
like you look at like RFK Jr. now, and you're like, he's just basically Dr. Nick,
Oh
only
my
way
God.
less fun. You know.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. Much less cool at a party, I'd imagine.
Yeah.
Ew.
Calm down. You're going to give yourself skin failure. Yeah.
Or like when he's about to put, I think, Homer down for surgery or something, he's like, a little bit of nitrous will put you right to sleep. And then he like puffs the nitrous himself and then like hits
Yeah.
Homer over the head with a bat.
Right. You should have hit
Yeah.
him with a surgical 2x4.
Right? Yeah. Like wallop him all day with a surgical 2x4.
It would have been a lot more sanitary because those come individually wrapped.
That was such a great gag. And that was a really sweet episode too. Like Mo always comes through with heart, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but talking about things being prophetic, I think I would be remiss if I didn't mention the phenomena that people have noted these days of things that happen in The Simpsons that seem to be a premonition of something that happened in real life. Which
Yes.
there's a part of me that wants to uh, rationalize it and just say, well, they did so many episodes and they had to come up with so many situations that it only, like, law of averages says that eventually some of those things would actually happen.
Yeah.
um, but some of them do seem kind of eerie. um,
Like which ones have you got?
uh, I tried to bring up just a basic list of them, but that proved hard to do, in part because a lot of them are in later seasons.
Oh,
And
yeah.
but and I mean, some of them happened specifically because of the Simpsons episode. Like, um, last year, Cypress Hill performed with the London Symphony Orchestra.
Because of the Simpsons episode?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. Like, I can't imagine why they would do that otherwise.
That's a
Like,
yeah.
uh, it doesn't seem to me that they, like, independently decided to do that and didn't even think about the fact that that had happened in the Homer Palooza episode. And of
Very
course, the whole
true.
gag there was, Peter Frampton had ordered the orchestra,
Yeah.
but they thought they did while they were high and
Yeah.
forgot. Yeah. Um, but so I mean, that's kind of a hilarious one. But we'll look at some of these other ones. Um, I mean, I guess they predicted the presidency of Donald Trump, but I don't remember that. I feel like that must have been a
I
later
feel
season.
like I feel like that one's been debunked. Like I feel like I read somewhere that like that actual clip came out after the he announced his candidacy, but I could be wrong.
Well, it says that that happened in the 11th season episode Bart to the Future.
Oh shit. Okay.
That's a flash forward for Bart, but again, that's beyond the point where I was watching it.
Yeah, I kind of stopped there too.
Yeah.
Um,
Uh,
that's like there was that Rage Against the Machine video, music video from the '90s or early 2000s where somebody was holding a Trump for president sign.
yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's really the problem with a lot of these is that they happened in seasons that I never watched. But this is a really interesting one: is predicting the discovery of the Higgs boson. Have you ever seen
Oh,
this one before?
interesting. No.
So, 1998 episode, "The Wizard of Evergreen Terrace." Homer becomes
Okay,
inspired by Thomas Edison to pursue a career as an inventor. At
I
one
like
point,
that one. Yeah.
he
Okay,
writes an
sorry, sorry.
equation on a chalkboard, um, which, like, if you work out the equation that's up there, you get the mass of a Higgs boson. Um, so this was like 14 years before the people at CERN reached like a 99% certainty level about the existence and mass of a Higgs boson. Um,
Oh,
so this equation that's on the board was pretty damn close 14 years before that was actually discovered. But that's because the Simpsons writers were pretty smart dudes. They were all like nerds from uh, like Ivy League schools.
that
So
yeah, that is really interesting.
yeah,
And I feel like I saw somewhere that like theoretically like they had some idea of like where they were going to find the Higgs boson mass wise, and like they built CERN with that in mind. Like there was a very pretty small window of like where they were expecting the Higgs boson to exist, but I don't
right.
know. Like
Well, they're smashing atoms in a particle accelerator to get the smaller particles. I was pretty obsessed with the Higgs boson uh, search when they were doing all those tests at CERN, and very excited when they essentially proved the existence of the Higgs boson. But I don't know that I could adequately explain it now.
It's tough. Yeah, I've had it explained to me like by multiple different sources, and I'm still like, okay, yeah, it gives things mass. Cool. I'm glad you found it. Thank you.
Well, because if you know the thing that gives things mass, like that explains a lot, like gravity, like what converts energy to matter. Like basically, if you control the function of the Higgs boson, you control reality itself. So
Oh shit. Also time, right? Because only massless particles can travel at the speed of light, which like they
yeah,
don't then experience time if you're
right.
traveling that fast. But if you have
Everything's
mass,
on the table. Yeah, this is what I'm
yeah,
saying. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But there are those
Oh,
people that say that a weasel fell into the particle accelerator in like 2014 or something like that, and that split the timeline when that happened.
oh shit. I mean,
That's a popular
yeah,
theory. Yeah.
I hadn't heard that one. I always think like uh Harambe in 2015
Oh
definitely
yeah,
split the timeline. That's always a theory that I've run across. I'm always like kind of giggled at. But the
yeah.
weasel and the gorilla, I think there's a solid case to be made there.
Right. Well, I mean, those of us, I have it on good authority that it wasn't a weasel. It was actually a mongoose. It was
Um,
a mongoose named Jeff. So, uh,
of course it was.
yeah.
Yes.
Season 4 episode Marge in Chains. Um, the, okay, so people think that one kind of predicted spurious claims about COVID-19 treatments, but also there's a mob that turns over a container full of killer bees, and people associated that with the murder hornets that were popping up. So,
Oh,
uh,
shoot.
but I mean, killer bees were a thing. That was part of, again, like that '90s zeitgeist of paranoia and weirdness, where
Yeah.
killer bees had been an ominous threat for like over a decade that just never really surfaced for most people. Like,
Yeah. I
I'm sure
remember
you
like,
heard that as a kid, right? Like, people would, "Oh, the
oh
killer bees
yeah.
are coming. They're coming. They're just not here yet."
Yeah. And that was definitely like, yeah, that was growing up, especially in Florida, where like we basically never had winter and bees were always
Yeah,
around.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, I wonder how much of like that paranoia like goes back even further and we just didn't pick up on it because of our age. Like,
Oh, I'm sure it did. Like, I'm not saying it was, like, new in the '90s, but
yeah,
I also
no,
feel like things were pretty, like, stable back then. Like, people didn't have a lot to complain about, so they were, like, imagining, things to be upset about.
I think I think there's something to be said for that. And like,
Like, man, uh, I really didn't have as much to worry about back then, it seemed, at least, it seemed okay, but,
yeah,
um
well, like we were probably insulated from a lot of the shit that was going on, right? Like,
yeah, I mean, if we were that young back then, it's, like, kinda, you know, have a different viewpoint on it. Let's see. We've got the horse meat scandal. It says in the '94 episode, Sweet Seymour Skinner's badass song, Lunch Lady Doris is pouring assorted horse parts into the school meals. Um, and then there was in 2013 a scandal in England where there was a bunch of horse meat found in beef products.
oh shit.
I don't know that that really counts as a prediction.
Yeah,
Oh, this is a fun one that I found just because this cracks me up every time.
yeah.
Um, I'm just going to preface it by saying that the three surviving Beatles all appeared on The Simpsons, and I think
Oh shit.
the funniest one was Ringo, right? Like, see, George and Paul were funny when they were on the show, but the Ringo one just cracks me up every time because
Which
he's
one was Ringo
basically
again?
the one where Marge becomes an artist. Actually, I have
Oh
the title of
yes,
the episode right here.
yes.
Because she had sent a portrait to Ringo in the '60s, I guess, or the '70s. But uh, you see Ringo like in his parlor in his or like in his study in his big mansion, and he's personally responding to every fan letter, and
Yeah,
he's like decades behind.
yeah.
It is just like, in answer to your question, my favorite color is blue. Love, Ringo. So he's writing back to Marge because she sent him that portrait, and he's like, "You're quite the artist. I liked your portrait. I hung it on me wall." It just, I don't know, that just cracks me up every time. But I guess that was a prediction because it says there was a letter that was written 50 years ago to Sir Paul McCartney that he only just got. Um, it says two Essex women in 2013 received a reply from Paul McCartney 50 years after they had written him a fan letter. So,
Oh my God, that's wild.
so that's really funny because I don't know. I actually wouldn't expect that of Paul, but it makes sense from Ringo. I don't know. Um, okay, so this one, uh, see, this is a stretch too. This one says that Lisa's wedding that flashes forward to the future predicted smartwatches, but because they had those. Um, I don't know. Like the gadget watch thing has been a trope in sci-fi forever. Um,
Yeah,
I felt like they were just playing on that. Um,
yeah. That was like Maxwell Smart throwback.
yeah,
Like he
well,
had the.
even earlier than that, like Dick Tracy had like a little radio watch
Oh yeah,
in the
that's
old
right.
comic strips and stuff. So it goes back to the 30s. Um, uh, but in that episode, here's one that I think is kind of eerie. Is there's a tree that like glitches out and disappears, and
Oh,
they run over and kick it. It's just like a hologram tree,
oh
and
yeah, yeah, yeah.
there's like a sign on it that says like in memory of a real tree. So, and like what made me think of that is this weird phenomena of AI pictures, but specifically AI generated pictures of like landscapes. But you can tell they're fake. Like you look at the trees and they're not right.
Yeah.
Um, for some reason, my wife was getting those a lot, like in her feeds. She'd be scrolling and there'd be like these weird, like landscape AI pictures, and they were
Oh,
supposed to.
wild.
And it was popping up like on for both of us on social media for like a minute. But then I saw that episode and I'm like, yeah, like fake, like artificially generated trees to replace like the trees that AI is actively killing by sucking up all the water, and
Yeah.
resources. Yeah, kind of eerie and awful. This is a bit more grim than I thought it would be, but
Oh, I just
yeah.
saw looking at one here. It's season two. Oh brother, where art thou? When Homer invents that really crappy car for his brother's car company, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, they've got it here as listing it as predicting the Cybertruck. I'm just like, yeah, exactly. Yes.
The Cybertruck is so much
Yeah,
worse though.
it really is. Homer's car at least had soul and a hood ornament.
Yeah, yeah. It was from the heart. Homer's car was.
Yeah.
Um,
They predicted the Siegfried and Roy tiger attack. Like that was definitely something that happened on an episode before it happened in real life.
yeah. Okay. So that's a better example of an actual prediction that actually happened. So I would accept that one. I'll allow that. But yeah. So let's see.
Oh,
Oh,
they're saying,
there's.
oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say autocorrect fails is on one of
Yes.
these lists.
Eat up,
So
Martha.
yeah, beat it. But the on is Newton, Apple Newton. Yeah,
That was on the Lisa on Ice episode. That's one of my favorite episodes of all time.
it's a good one.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
I'm looking at one list, the tobacco plants that we were talking about, like when Homer like picks a fight in that episode with a Southern colonel, like challenges them to a duel, and the colonel accepts, and Homer's like, "Fuck it, I've got to get out of town." So he goes back to his farm he grew up on, like sows the land with uranium and random seeds, and ends up growing a hybrid of tomatoes and tobacco. This
Right.
episode is saying like there was like similarly deformed fruits and vegetables popping up after the Fukushima disaster.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's kind of weird.
Hmm. Well, I mean, there was also the episode with like a flu from Japan or something like that that came through the products that people were ordering from there,
Yes.
and people thought of that as being like predicting COVID-19, but it was
Yeah.
actually in reference to like a flu that happened like back in the 60s, I guess. So,
Yeah.
because flus are just a thing that happens sometimes, but
Oh yeah, that
so
was on the Margin Chains episode,
yeah,
which was also the Killer Bee Murder Hornet one as well.
yeah.
Um,
Well, maybe some of these episodes are just particularly tapped in, you know.
yeah, and I think a lot of this is like I don't know. There's definitely like I would almost want to say like currents or like vibes that like people pick up on. Like it's a thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Like
yeah.
John Mattingly's sideburns. Sorry.
Look, Mr. Burns, I don't know what you think sideburns are.
That's it. You're off the team. Go home.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, here's one. When You Dish Upon a Star is 1998 episode. Um, I don't remember this episode. Well, it says Ron Howard went to Springfield, and there's a scene that can be seen at the Fox studio lot that says the company is now a division of Disney.
Yes.
So yeah, that's a real prediction right there.
That is definitely a real prediction. Yeah, I'll give it that. That one gets the in the oh shit category of the synchronicity meter.
Yeah, because I think like if you're looking at it from a '90s perspective, like I feel like in the '90s, if you're talking about Disney, you're talking about like the Little Mermaid and like Aladdin, and you're still
Yeah.
talking like the House of Mouse. Like they didn't own everything back then.
Yeah.
So it would have been really, really strange. That's like a good funny gag that they're gonna like own Fox, let alone like ESPN and Marvel and like
Oh
Star
my
Wars
God.
and yeah,
Yeah. Like the weirdest thing about that is like, and even like really like even like more predictive stuff, or from my perspective, predictive, but like they were always ripping on Disney, like on those early seasons, talking about like what an awful company they were, like poking
right,
fun at them for like being awful to their employees or just being generally awful. And like, the older I got, the more I realized just like how much of that was supported and has been supported by, you know, just lots of evidence like through the years.
right,
And like in the 90s, like as a kid, like it was just all completely over my head and past me. And I was like, oh, wholesome cartoons. Let's do this.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think the Itchy and Scratchy Land episode definitely touches on that because it's like one part Jurassic Park, but one part Disneyland, you know. So
Yeah.
yeah, Killer Robot, Itchy and Scratchies. I guess it's kind of
No,
Westworld too, but uh,
well, you
yeah,
know what they say, nothing could possibly go wrong.
yeah. And that episode is the origin of the Bort joke. For
Yes.
yeah, so for the phenomena that is Bort posting nowadays, which is just like you know, uh, it's such a strange thing to me. Like, talk about brains being broken both by The Simpsons and by the internet. This is like a nexus of brain brokenness where people spend a lot of time editing clips from The Simpsons into like bizarre memes called abort post. And like, I don't know. I feel like I'm kind of more into it now. Like, I feel like I used to just be frustrated with them, but
Yeah.
now I'm like, all right, I get it. I think I understand the appeal. Um, like, how many permutations there are out there of the steamed hams bit.
Oh my God, there's so many great ones. Oh,
Yeah. Um, uh, I mean, I think that's something that all Simpsons fans just generally agreed was a great moment in the show. But it's kind of bizarre how that's kind of taken a life of its own.
it, you know, it really is. Like it was part of 22 short films about Springfield, right? So it was just like
Yeah,
literally a minute
yeah,
that has given birth to multiple countless hours of just arguably great entertainment.
yeah, yeah. It's uh, oh, good stuff. I wasn't really sure overall where we'd end up on this one, but I think that there's a lot to consider with The Simpsons and its legacy. Um, but I don't know. I almost just kind of feel like it would have been better if it stopped where it started getting kind of bad. Because did you did you just send me a Bort post right now?
I did. Yes, sorry. It was too good not to.
There you go. All right. That's really funny because that was a moment in the show that popped into my head earlier. Uh, the goddamn freaking no good motherfucking cheese that just popped into my head for some reason earlier today, and I was gonna text it to you, but I was driving, so I couldn't.
That's awesome. I love it.
But yeah, so
But yeah. Sorry. You were
but
saying, I
yeah,
apologize.
I mean, I think it's just a monumental part of culture for a lot of us, and it's just I don't know. I figured it was worth a discussion because I know for me personally, it's like with I had a very close friend, as you know, listeners might not know, that passed away a couple of years ago, and it was
Yeah.
like we would check in with each other, but didn't necessarily have stuff to say or like things to report on, but we'd be sending each other like YouTube links to like little Simpsons videos or like lines from the Simpsons that we'd go back and forth with. Um, just a way to get attention, and just
Yeah.
like send like, no way, man, I'm gonna keep rocking forever. And then that would lead to like, what are you up to? Like, want to hang out? And it's like, yeah. And then he passed away, and it was like that was actually something that I thought at the time was like, who am I gonna send Simpsons references to now? You know?
Mhm. I'll always trade Simpsons references with him. But no,
Yeah.
yeah.
But that kind of overlapped with our friendship, and I was like, I'm just gonna send you Simpsons references all the time because, like, I like it makes me sad not to. Like,
Fuck yes. Please keep them
so I'm
coming.
very,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I, I very much value our friendship, and I'm very glad that you're in my life because I feel like I feel like we've been there for each other a bunch in the past couple of years, and I'm grateful for it. So
Likewise.
yeah,
That's very touching. Thank you so much. I feel this exact same way.
yeah, yeah. It's good stuff. So, but like an early season of the an early season episode of The Simpsons, we can end on a touching note.
Absolutely. Yes. Um,
So good stuff. Um,
it's great. I really
so
enjoyed this.
yeah, it was great. But I we can cut this if it's not applicable. But do you have anything you want to direct people to online? Because I know you're thinking about you're dipping your toes back into music, right? But I don't know if there's anything you want to.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I appreciate the platform. Kind of like taking a big step back from social media, but you can find me on like Blue Sky at subtledemise.bluesky.social, I think is how those links work.
Right.
Kind of just post random shit every now and then, sometimes some Simpsons references. But yeah, I'm looking over at this guitar here that I've been like slowly putting back together and like fixing up, and I'm really been thinking about like getting back to work on an EP that like I started working on in like 2019 and just kind of fell away from.
Hmm.
So I'll keep you updated on that. But yeah, no, the only other thing I would say is like don't really have any huge projects or anything to announce, but check in with your local food bank. There's probably a good chance they need baby stuff, diapers, food, stuff like that is important.
Oh yeah, yeah. I have
Yeah,
a feeling that a lot is going to hinge on people communally working together in the near future, if it hasn't
absolutely.
already. So yeah. Uh,
110%.
I'll yeah. We have to all come together like Springfield did and rebuild Ned Flanders' house. Uh, so
110% straight from the heart. Yes.
right, yeah, yeah. All right,
Well, thank,
thanks so much again.
thank you so much, Matt. Talk to you later.
Yeah, talk to you later.